Salutations gamers, I'm the OGG Game, and welcome to the pilot episode of our new series, Art Advice with Mr. Game. Originally, I had planned on making this into just one video discussing all the topics that people had been requesting of me, but that wound up being way harder than I anticipated, and the video would have taken me basically eternity to make. So instead I decided to make it into a series instead, a series of videos talking about all the little things that I think could benefit people trying to get into the field of art. That said, let's delve right into today's topic. I cannot speak today for some reason. Setting expectations. As with anything, it's important to understand yourself and what you plan to achieve. Those are your expectations. Even if you plan on just doing art as little more than a hobby, you still need to understand what field of art you want to actually learn and pursue, even if you want to learn a little bit of all of them. Now, if you're planning on learning art as just a hobby, then, well, you're good to go, pretty much. Learn however you want, take as much time as you want, it doesn't make much difference. However, if you're planning on pursuing art as more of a career, then there are some things that you're going to need to know. That something you need to know is what it takes. Not a lot of artists talk about this when discussing how to become a better artist or discussing, actually trying to get into the art field as a career, but the art field is an incredibly difficult field to get into regardless of where you're trying to get into, and it's also very demanding as a job. Being a professional in any field of art comes with a high level of ability. To explain my point better, let's look at a few examples. Let's say that you're an illustrator. Okay, that means that you're going to need to put together a portfolio of your artwork in order to impress potential clients. Or if you're looking to get hired by a studio, your potential employer. And the only thing that any of them are going to be interested in other than cost is your skill level. Here's a book I have, the Call of Cthulhu RPG Guide. Flip to any page in this book, and you'll find perfect examples of amazing illustrations. And I want you to understand something. This is your competition. Something else to note, even if your client or employer doesn't want art of this level of quality, being better at art like this means that you'll be able to produce art of lesser quality much faster. I'm not even a professional, and I do this sort of thing all the time. Take these two images, for example. Compare the detail of these two, one being something I threw together for a thumbnail without much regard, and the other an unfinished comic-style illustration I was working on. The better and faster that I get at being able to make things like this, the easier it will be for me to make illustrations like this. How fast you can produce art is incredibly important, as you are more or less paid by piecework. The point I'm trying to make is that not every client is going to want hyper-realistic looking illustrations. Sure, but the better you are at making illustrations like that, the easier and faster you'll be able to produce art of lesser quality. And that's important to understand, as you will then be able to produce it at a rate far faster than somebody who isn't on the same skill level as you. This is actually a great opportunity to transition into talking about animations, as nowhere is this better exemplified than in the world of animation. Sure, 2D animated shows don't generally have that high level of detail in them, but you need to understand that studios expect you to work very fast. Every second of standard American animation is going to be 24 frames, meaning 24 separate images that you have to make for every single second of animation that you're in charge of making for any given scene. Disney animators, for instance, are capable of drawing one frame every 10 minutes or so. That's incredibly fast. As you can imagine, animation studios expect you to work very hard, and they expect results. And don't think that just because you're in a team of other animators that your job is going to be any easier. I'm not telling you this to try to discourage you, I just want you to understand how hard it really is. Finally, I want to talk about comic books. everybody and their brother wants to be in the comic book industry, but it's not any easier than any of the other topics that we've discussed. For starters, a lot of people underestimate just how much detail actually goes into comic books, not to mention the fact the speeds that a lot of studios expect you to work. Sure, the level of detail isn't the same as you would find in illustrations, and the speed that you'll be expected to work is not anywhere near the same level as, say, animations, but that doesn't mean it's any easier. Comic books are a sort of middle ground between illustration and animation. They have fairly detailed illustrations to them, not the hyper-realistic that you would come to see from just straight illustration, and they also need to be produced rather quickly. However, again, not as quickly as, say, animations. Even in a big studio, you're rarely going to have any more than, say, maybe 2 artists to a single comic book. Comic books themselves are generally produced once a month for the larger studios, say like Marvel and DC, and those companies expect an artist to produce all of a single comic book, generally being around, say, 20 pages in that month. So if you're the artist who's been put in charge of drawing the next Batman or, say, Spider-Man comic, you're going to have to produce those pages about 1 every day, if you want to take weekends off. Which is incredibly fast when you consider the fact that generally each page of a comic book is going to have multiple illustrations, as many as, say, 6 or even more than that. I myself generally can't even finish a single illustration in that amount of time. Of course, I'm also not at their skill level. That said, it's obviously not impossible, but hopefully now you better understand what it's actually going to take for you to pursue a career in art. Not to mention the hard work that it's going to take to get you there. Don't fall into the trap of becoming content with your work. There is always something new to learn and ways to improve upon what you've already done, no matter your skill level. No matter how good you are, you can always get better. Strive for perfection and practice like mad. Anyway, that's all I got to say for today. Like I said, this is going to be a new series on the channel, so I hope to see you in episode 1. This was just the pilot episode where we kind of get our feet wet a little bit discussing what we're going to be discussing, in a way. We're going to be discussing sketch work and all the things that come with it, as that's sort of the building blocks of everything to come after. So that's going to be episode 1. I hope to see you then. As always, I'm the OGG Game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.